Scheidt from Ramp. For those that are not familiar with Ramp, I'm sure he'll tell us a bit about it, but my take on it, it's similar to like Evermore, WordPress.com sort of thing, like a hosted place to build WordPress sites without having to get into the messy stuff yourself. But today we're going to talk about advanced custom fields, which I hear about all the time and we've never personally used, and I know a lot of the rest of you in here haven't either, so I thought it'd be good for us to all learn that. Before we dig in though, let's take a second. We're all enjoying our wonderful food. Thanks to Carl and ClickHost. So let Carl come up for a second.
We have quite a few sandwiches, 2 salads, and then leave the donuts. That's Mickey's. He'll fight you for it. So I forgot the holder for the credit, not the credit, you can give your credit card as well. But the business card, so if you don't mind this, just drop your business card. We have a couple of Tom and Cheese certificates and then some hosting to give away. Quickly, what I wanted to mention today is we're starting to do some hosting in Amazon Web Services. And so if you've got websites that need a little bit more performance, you know, high-end, lots of traffic, Amazon is really a solid platform. So we have this package, 30 gigs of space, we make the backups, we scan for malware, all the good stuff.
Really the whole talk, just I'd love anybody's feedback and questions along the way, very informal. So as you have thoughts or ideas, just please toss them out. Quick few just notes about me and where I got started with WordPress. I graduated from UGA a few years ago. Didn't study web development or anything like that in college, but I got into it as kind of a hobby, helping some friends out, and really enjoyed it and loved getting to do that. And then got a job working for a marketing agency up in Kennesaw for about 3 years. And so got some great experience there. We got to work specifically with financial advisors. And so myself along with one other web developer, we created about 300 websites during those 3 years. And so learned a lot about how to scale up with a lot of different clients and work with people who had no clue what they were doing on the web, and building a site for them that's, you know, customized for their needs and all, and also fits as they want to grow their website. And so from that last year, I decided to branch out and do my own thing, and I founded Ramp Ventures. Basically, I wanted to work with clients who are focused on helping other people. So I get to work with a lot of ministries and nonprofits, and it's a great experience for me, and I've been able to use some of the things I learned and some of the tools that I use specifically with WordPress to help out those clients. And so a few of the ways I do that, and this is going to relate to kind of how I use advanced custom fields, is I have 3 main goals when I create websites for clients. Is they need to be beautiful, they need to be affordable, and they need to be simple. And those are kind of 3 difficult things to do all at the same time. For a lot of people, if you do the beautiful and simple part, it's hard to keep it affordable for them. And so one of the ways I was able to start this, and kind of my vision for growing my company, is using WordPress Multisite. So how many of you guys run a WordPress Multisite or have experience working with it? Okay, so does everybody else have an understanding of how that works at all, or you may kind of go over it? Okay, so WordPress Multisite, basically, you can host your own version of WordPress.com to where you can have unlimited number of websites under one multi-site, and then you can decide what themes and plugins are available for the users on that site. And so I have, I've done this with my site where I have a fully custom theme that I built out, and all of my clients run on the same main theme. And then I have certain plugins that I allow for them to use on their site, and I have specific plugins that I don't allow them to use on their site because they don't function well, or I kind of get to help dictate to them what will work and what won't work for their site. And so you're able to scale that up a lot with a multi-site. Every time I get a new client, I don't have to go pay for new hosting for a new add-on install of WordPress. And then it also lets you scale as you add features to stuff. You can push those features out to all your clients through your theme. And so using advanced custom fields, that's how I built out my whole custom theme that I'm running all my websites on right now. And then occasionally I'll build some customized child themes when people have very specific stuff that they want that doesn't fit within that. So that's kind of a quick overview of how I use this, and we'll jump into a lot more specifics here in a little bit. But I want to talk for a second just about, I think for the most part everybody builds sites, WordPress sites for clients, and you get a lot of different ways of doing that. You can take a normal theme and just put their content in the content editor field and display that on the page, but you're really limited in what you can do with that. Styling wise and layout wise, there's some limitations there. And so a couple months ago we talked about page builder plugins, specifically the Beaver Builder one. And I know that's a very popular way that a lot of people use to customize their site. They replace the content that goes in the content editor with all these little modules where you can drop widgets and all kinds of cool stuff in there. And I actually use that a lot for individual pages, customizing those pages for people. Another option is if you have the coding knowledge, you can jump in and create a fully custom WordPress theme yourself just from scratch, just using PHP. And that's awesome if you know how to do that. But there's a lot of limitations on that, and WordPress is pretty specific if you ever want to sell that theme on their platform or anything like that. And then kind of the last option that you have, or that I've experienced, is using kind of a hybrid of both. So using a page builder a little bit, but also customizing your own theme a little bit with some plugins and some PHP that we'll walk through. And specifically what I use for that is advanced custom fields. So one of the advantages of doing it this way compared to using Beaver Builder or something like that I've found, personally, it's a lot faster to code this way. So if you're working with a larger site and you're using Beaver Builder or a page builder plugin like that, every time you go create a new page, you're having to copy over all your content, or you have to start from scratch as far as building the layout for that page. Whereas if you have a large site, you can create your page templates and require certain fields on those page templates. The other thing that's really important to me, and you guys have probably experienced this, like how many of you guys, you built a site and you hand it off to a client for them to manage, and you get a call a few weeks later that they broke something on the site? Does that happen? Never? Okay. Well, you should come give a talk this week, so teach us how to do it. Oh, that's a great way to do it. Yeah, that's the best way to go. But if you want, a lot of clients that I work with, at least, they want to be able to get in and update their site, but they also have zero coding experience, and so they don't know how to create anything with code. It freaks them out, and so. My favorite thing about this is I can kind of dictate, when I hand over a site to them, I can dictate what they have to put into a page in order to publish it. Or if they want to add a new employee to their About Us page, it requires them to put in a headshot at a certain dimensions, or it requires them to put in all these different things instead of them just kind of trying to code it out in the content editor themselves. And so you end up with a lot less breaks and a lot less complaints about I messed something up on my site where you have to go in and redo work. And then the last part that's kind of cool, you can also use this to hide some of the functionality in WordPress. So WordPress offers an incredible amount of functionality that's great, but not every theme supports or even needs to show everything. Like most of my clients, I tell them, you guys don't need to show tags on all of your posts because you only have like 4 posts. And you're only going to have 3 more by the end of the year. And so let's start small, and then as you need to categorize and tag things, we'll make those available. And so you can kind of hide those pieces. that aren't necessary in the WordPress admin screen, so that they aren't, you know, walking through it and like, well, I added categories and tags and they're not showing up on my post, and well, it's because your theme doesn't show them. And okay, we'll build that in now. So you kind of get to work with a client a little bit better and help them not be so overwhelmed by all the pieces that are there in WordPress. So specifically, here's what ACF, or I'll call it ACF, it's Advanced Custom Fields. Here's specifically what it does. So you can go in and create a field pretty much anywhere in the back end of WordPress. So you can assign it to your posts, you can assign it to your pages, you can build out like an options table to create it where people have to go in and they can add any number of things. So we talked about it allows the client to kind of style out their site or their posts or however they want without them having to have any coding knowledge. And then you can implement those pieces into your theme with just a very little bit of coding knowledge, and I'll walk through how to do that a little bit. One of the best ways to do that is creating, and kind of one of the simplest ways, is creating custom page templates. So have you guys ever created your own custom page templates before using WordPress? Okay. So it's very simple. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it with advanced custom fields, to where you can just copy like your page.php file, and then let's say you wanted to add an option for someone to have an alternate title on their page. You know, sometimes they want to, or like a secondary title. You could create a custom field for them to put a secondary title on their page, and then you could just add that field into your page.php file. And so it's very simple to kind of just add some extra functionality as the client asks for things like that to their site. So that's how you can add it through page templates. One of the other things I use it for a lot is for customizing themes. We'll look through some examples, but like customizing the loop. Sometimes people want to display certain posts, like different categories as different ways in their loop, and they don't want everything to just look the exact same. So there's lots of variables you can do. The basic kind of building blocks of advanced custom fields are you can add text blocks, you can add a full WYSIWYG like content editor to anywhere on your site. You could add a date picker or like select or radio buttons or checkboxes. So there's all kind of fields that you can add, most of the normal ones that we work with in WordPress. And then there's some advanced ones that we'll talk about as well. So specifically for posts, here's some kind of real world examples of how I've used it and how you might kind of, maybe this will spark some interest in how you could use ACF for some of your themes. So I talked about displaying posts differently in the loop. We'll see an example in a little bit, but where people, you know, your usual loop displays every post the exact same as you scroll down. And sometimes that gets a little boring. So some people might want to display the image a little differently on some posts, or they might want to feature some posts more prominently than others. And so you get to kind of create a theme that that makes those things possible for them with things like ACF. I like to add video options for a lot of people for their posts. A lot of times clients come to me and they say, oh, you know, we have this video, I want to add it to my blog post. And so I'll add an option in for them to just drop their YouTube ID for that specific video, and it displays the video at the top of the post. Instead of them having to go and embed the code and then try to drop it into something to embed it responsibly and then breaking, or then, you know, dropping it in the visual side instead of the HTML side, and you know, they don't understand how to do that, so they just have a very easy little field there that says, you know, put your Vimeo or YouTube ID in here. I have some clients who they like to add more than one featured image, and so you can add different ways to display multiple featured images for them. You can do like replacement headlines or sub headlines for people who just want kind of, they want a little, they're asking for more than their theme offers currently. You can add these things in for them. And then again, you can kind of limit some of that functionality by hiding things based on the category, based on the post type. You can hide any of the pieces of WordPress. So I'll show you on the back end here in a little bit how that works. But there's so much functionality once you jump into ACF as to what you can do. For pages, some of the examples that we talked about are alternate titles. So another one is featured image placement. a lot of times I like to use the featured image as like a background image on the page title section or something like that, just to make a site look a little different than just plopping an image in there. And that works great, except anytime you use a background image, it's going to display differently at different screen sizes, and people get a little funny about how that works. So I'll put in an option for them to select, do I want this background image to be center, or do I want it to be center bottom or left top? And so it lets them kind of position stuff without them having to go in and code any of that themselves. One of my absolute favorite things about ACF is the repeater field, and I'll show you an example of this. But you can add repeating functionality to a page, and a great example of this is like if you have bios or if you have services, and you want an icon or you want a headshot and you want their name, their title, the description, their email address. You can force someone to, okay, I want to add a new bio, and it makes them put an actual email in the email field. It makes them drop the right kind of headshot in the headshot field. And then they can go in and add those things themselves later on without you having to go manually code another one of those out every time. The flexible content field is another one I'll mention. This is a little bit more advanced, but it lets you kind of combine all of your page functions into one page template. So if you had services, and you maybe had a page template for your services, and then one for your bios on your about page, and then one more that talks about all of your resources. Instead of having a separate page template for each one of these, you could create a flexible content field to where you could go in and combine all of them into one page template, and then on my bios page I just say add bios, and then on my services page, and it's all running through the same page template. And so if a client goes in there and wants to add another, a second resources page, they don't have to go and select the resources page template. It just takes some of the steps out of, anytime I can take away an option for someone to mess something up, it's helpful because it allows them to do some of that themselves. And then again, you have the ability with advanced custom fields to decide where you want it to display on the site. So you can also say, like, I only want to display the alternate title field if they're using the page template that I created. That's their custom page template. I don't want it to show up on this other one because this other page template doesn't support it. And so you get to decide when things show up for clients and kind of build their own custom way of walking through WordPress.
Or like responsive titling. So like on a big thing, you can have a long title.
Exactly.
Short, you can like,
yeah,
words, that's all you get, that many characters, make your title fit that.
Yeah, that's a great example. You could force them on every post to create a secondary title that shows up on mobile that's just a short title. Because you can do character limits on certain fields. And so you could say, we're going to make them do something under 100 characters for this so that their post title isn't extremely long. That's a great example of a way you can do that. So I want to jump into a couple examples of this and show you guys how I use this on some sites. And the first thing we'll look at, if you want to follow along, just all things wp.myramp.co. So I'm going to pull that up on my computer here. All right, so here's the home page, and if you want to go to the ACF examples page, we're going to walk through a couple things on that. And again, just so y'all kind of see how you can use this, like this is one of the sites that I just set up on my Multisite that has all this functionality built into it already. So you can create a lot of customizability with one theme based on ACF. So I'm going to jump in here to custom fields, to a field group that I created called ACF Examples. So there's tons of different field types that you can use with ACF, and I just wanted to show you guys kind of how we would do this. So I went in here and I said if the page template is equal to ACF examples, I want to show all these fields, and I want to hide the content editor. And so if I pull up that specific page that's using the ACF examples template, you can see there's no content editor, there's no main content editor, but I've replaced all of WordPress with this ACF examples tab here that has all of my options built in. And so I just created a couple simple ones to get forward. There's just a text field. you can go in and add your own. You can name it whatever you want to. This is the label that'll show up for the client. Right here, you can add instructions for them that tells them exactly what they should do on that. And then the field name is really important because that's how you're going to display it in your theme with some simple PHP. So usually I try to keep that as simple as possible. You can change the type to anything you want to. So we could change this to an image or a post object or whatever. And I'll walk through kind of the basics of all of these real quick. But since I've already built all these out, I'm going to jump into the page itself here and just show you guys some examples of how I could display these values on the site. So this is my page currently. There's not much there right now. But I'm going to jump over here and pull some of my favorite filler text.
Bacon.
Love bacon epsom. So I'll drop some text into these first couple fields here. So this one is just your normal text field. You can set a character limit on it if you want to. The text area field, it's basically, it's like a WYSIWYG, but it doesn't have all the functionality on there. So if you don't want people to be able to do short codes and things like that in there, this just will allow them to just put a paragraph of text. You can force something to be a number. I can force an email here. Let's see here. I can make this one a URL. All right, so we put in kind of our basic fields here. So if I go in and update the page, we can look at where those displayed on the site here.
What sort of messaging do you get if you violate the?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's do that real quick. So if I go in here and I just try to put something random in for my email, it won't let me update the page. It'll give you a message that one of them failed. Usually it says which one it is, and it'll highlight it. And so, okay, I'll go in and update that so it's an actual email. And that allows you to force clients to put in the right type of thing for that so they don't break something on their site. So now that I've added those, these fields have shown up then in on the page. There's the text area, the number, the email, URL. And so the way that I did this, I'm going to show you all the PHP for this real quick. And it might seem a little overwhelming, but I promise it's very simple. Really, all you need is just like the text field. I just have a simple if-then, or just if and if statement. So if the field text is there, then I'm going to give it a title, and then display the field, and then just have a clear tag after it. And so you can see I've created that for each one of these. The text area, the number. Is that visible back there? Can you see it enough?
Not particularly.
Make it bigger.
Yeah, let's see it. Is that better?
That's better.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is what's displaying the text field. And that's all I had to do. And I included a title that says text, and I just have a clear tag after it. And so it's very simple. If that field isn't there, nothing displayed. So that's why our page was blank after basic fields beforehand, is there was nothing in that text field. Now that I've displayed an option, or now that I've put some content in there, it'll display whatever I put in the back end of WordPress. So it's very simple to add these PHP pieces into your theme. I'll jump down and show you guys kind of the next section that we're about to jump into. So the content field. Right now, under content fields, under this title, there's nothing there. But you can see there's a bunch of statements written. So if I have the field, the WYSIWYG Editor, then I have the title for it, and I have the content, and then a clear tag. And I have this for all the different types of fields we're about to walk through. So, like I said, it can seem a little overwhelming looking at the PHP if you've never used it before. But I'll give you a resource here at the end. ACF actually does a really good job. They give you example code for how to use every single one of their fields. And so if you don't want to write this yourself, you can just Google like ACF text area, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to put in your theme to display a text area field, and you just rename the field. So it's very simple, and then you can kind of style it however you want to by adding your own classes and CSS and all that. So we'll walk through the rest of these here real quick. The WYSIWYG editor here, it's pretty cool. You can, let me grab a little bit more here. You can do everything through this WYSIWYG editor that you could do in just a normal content editor. So I can create a list here of some stuff.
So this is replacing the whole, whatever somebody would see on the back end page. Like
So
the
with
whole
this specific example, it's replacing it all. You don't have to replace it. The only reason it's replacing it is because I said here when I built this out that I wanted to hide the content editor.
Okay, got it.
But you could just add one simple field that's
I
a
see.
secondary
Right.
title
Got it.
and just have it in addition to the regular content editor.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So in the WYSIWYG editor,
Uh-huh.
if you add something that normally adds something to the WYSIWYG editor, will that also show? So like if you have Envira and it has like the little add gallery button,
Yes.
will that pop up there too?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do here. So if I go in here and add, let's say I want to add a form. And so let's say I want to add this gravity form. So if I update the page here, so now this gravity form is set up here at the beginning of the WYSIWYG editor, and then the rest of my content. And so you can do everything in the WYSIWYG editor that you could do in the normal content editor. And where that's helpful is like within that repeater functionality and things like that, where you might want the ability for people to kind of, like if I list out all my services, I might have a lot of information on each service, and so I might need to have a form in each service that's like, hey, if you want this specific service, contact us, or I might need to have bullet points within each one, something more than just the text area field could do, or images throughout it. So that's definitely a good one to use.
Isaac?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, 2 quick questions. Where's this stored? Is this in the posts?
In the database,
Yeah,
I believe it is. Yes, ma'am.
okay. What happens if ACF goes away?
So if ACF goes away,
Does all this remain and I can reformat it?
no, that's the thing. So ACF, if you disable the plugin, then it won't break the site. There's just none of that stuff will show up. Because if you write it all correctly with if statements, then if I don't have this
Right.
WYSIWYG editor in there,
Right.
I don't get the title, I don't have the clear tag afterwards, and so you're not gonna lose anything, but you just won't have any of that. The information will be ready to show whenever you enable the plugin again, but it's not gonna display in your theme.
It's stayed in it's stored in metadata, right?
I don't know off the top of my head actually. You might know more about this
Yeah,
than I do.
so my opinion on it's the data stored in meta options for the post or post data or whatever that table is. So and it starts with an underscore.
Post
So
meta.
it'll stay there in the database.
Okay.
So on your template, it'll call in because it's querying the database for that. It doesn't care that the plugin's active or not active at that point.
That was
But
my
you'll lose it
concern.
on the back end.
I see what you're saying.
So-
Yeah. So it would actually still show. It just wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to change.
You won't be able
it.
to edit it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a good point.
Someone will be trying to figure out where the heck that text is in the database.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It does store it in the post data, not in the plugin itself.
Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
I've had to
Great question.
delete and reinstall a couple of plugins in the last couple of weeks, and I am very conscious of,
Yeah.
does the data go with it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's going to be easy enough to figure out here, right? If you just disable it, go see what the page looks like.
That's a good point. I'd have to jump into the. Let's see here.
Just have to
Just
disable
disable it.
plugin.
And then getting back to what Aaron said, so if you had like an Angular front end sitting on top of the API, all your data comes through JSON data, so you could
Okay.
You do whatever you want, yeah.
Do something amazing.
It's forced active on all of my sites right now, so I don't want to
Oh.
disable it on all of them.
Oh, that's a good point.
crunch.
Go ahead.
Well,
Just wait for your phone to ring.
exactly. Yeah, I know it would still show the site fine, it just wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to change anything. So
Thanks.
I'll have to test that out though on a test site sometime. See how it works. All right, so a couple other of the fields here that we'll walk through. You can throw an image in pretty simply and display it in your post. And I'll show you how those are displayed here in a second. If we just want to link to a file itself. And then there's a gallery field, which I haven't played around with this a lot, but it looks like it's pretty cool what you could do. So let's drop all those in there.
Yeah, when you were saying you could change the featured image, I thought, wouldn't that be interesting if you could put a gallery up there and the featured image?
Yeah, absolutely. You could hide the featured image section completely and then create a gallery here for them to go and add their own images. So each of these are just done through simple PHP. The gallery one's a little more complicated, what you want to, how you want to display each image. The file one's very simple, just linking to the file. And all these code samples you can just pull off of the ACF website, and so you don't have to write these from scratch or anything. The last couple ones that I'll walk through here on this site are some of the options ones. So right now, if I go in and put a couple checkboxes in here and select red, this true/false button, check this box to show choices on page. So I've made some selections, but if I update the page, nothing's going to show under these selections here, under these choice fields. So there's no choices there. And what I did is I wrapped all of them in a true/false button. And so if I click this, the box will show all of these choices. This is just kind of an example of how you can manipulate WordPress to show or hide things on the page. So now that I clicked it, now all of my selections are red, all the boxes I checked, and then my radio button all show up on the page. And so you're just wrapping different PHP if statements within each other on that to enable the ability to show and hide different stuff on the site. I'll close these out real quick.
One thing we've used it for in the past, which has worked really great, is we had a client that wanted to keep every post, there was a speaker name associated, but they didn't want to show it on the front part of the site, public part, but they wanted to kind of keep track on the back. So we just created a custom field that would display in the admin panel.
Okay.
They could keep track of, but it never showed on the public site for more tracking for on the
That
admin
makes sense.
side for the
Yeah.
client. We did a bunch of fields like that, so they could keep track of their data without having multiple Excel files and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing different ways that you can use WordPress to keep from having to track things manually and stuff like that. That's a great idea. The next one I want to jump into here is the repeater functionality. This is something that's available on the ACF Pro plugin, but it's really cool, so I'll show you guys how to do it. So these are some of the employees at Ramp.
Yay.
No, I wish. If you wanted to build out a page like this to display employees and show their headshot, show a title about them, show their bio, you could build all this into the content editor. But the issue then is, is everything formatted correctly? You have to go in and make sure that the title is H2, and then that that their name is like an H2, and then the title is bold for each one. And so if somebody goes in to add something later on, what if they forget to make the title H2? Or what if they forget to, put the image at the right dimensions or that sort of thing? And so in order to not have to do that, I created an employees repeater. And so what this is I just said for the page template, ACF repeater, we're going to hide the content editor again, and then we're going to display a repeater field here. And so the repeater field is really cool because you nest other ACF fields inside of it. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that, and it can get really confusing really quick. So be careful with it. But inside the employees field, I just very simply have a name field, a title field, a headshot, and a bio. And so on the page itself, when I go in here, this is what I see is the ACF repeater. And so for this employee, I'm able to display these fields for them. And you can actually you can kind of decide how they're displayed throughout the site. So for the name, I've decided that it's only going to be 1/3 of the width. And so instead of each one being stacked on top of each other, you can kind of create a layout in the back end of WordPress that's a little more intuitive for people to use. So they're forced to put in the name, the title, the headshot. There are some instructions for how wide the image should be. And then they get a WYSIWYG editor where they can do anything they want to as far as the bio. And so if I wanted to come in and add one more, I would just add another row and then add somebody else's name there.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to just add on stuff. You don't have to have any, nobody has to do any coding then to add another piece to this.
Can you reorder them?
Yeah, yeah, you can. This is all drag and drop as well.
Okay.
So let's say that we want to display Vince Vaughn higher.
Okay.
Then when I go back over here, should switch that out for me. So now we put the brand strategist ahead of the chief financial officer. And so this is one of my favorite features of ACF, is just being able to repeat a functionality without having to redo coding. And so real quick, I'll show you the repeater field here, how that looks. So it's very simple. It's just if we have the rows for the employees, while we have the row, so that's basically for each one, we're going to say if there's a name field, then display the name and wrap it in an H2 tag. For a title, we're going to wrap it in a P tag and make it bold. And then for the image, we want to set it up to where the image is in the class with a headshot, and we style that a little bit. I'm sorry, that's all if there's a bio. Then we put the if statement for the image within the bio, because I don't want to display the image if they don't have a bio there to go with it. And so you can kind of build your own layout for something like this based on however the client wants it to look. So that's another example of how you get to do that. The next thing I want to show you guys real quick is a little bit of kind of how you can do this for a theme. So one of the things that ACF allows you to do is you can actually add fields to your theme options panel, or to your options panel. It's not the theme options, it's not in the appearance tab. You can build out an options page and then create a bunch of different styling options. And so this is how I built my whole theme. It's not the only way to do it, it's probably not the best way to do it, but it works really well for me. And it just made sense, so I did it that way. And you basically can set up to where you're using the same theme, but you can set up different styling, you can set up different font options. One of my favorite things that I got to do is I got to do a custom loop builder. So I'll walk you through what that looks like real quick. This is the options panel for my theme that I built, and I'll give you guys the opportunity here in a bit. You can sign up for your own site to kind of just play around with the options panel. But I basically can decide within the header all these different things. If I want to change the background color, how much padding I want to give it, if I want the navigation to be left or right or center aligned, if I want the logo to be just in the top center, if I want it to be left. I've built all these things out to where it just changes the CSS a little bit based on the selections in here. And then some of them are crazy, like I built out all these font options to where I don't have to go and ever code someone H1 font size and style and tracking and all that. I just select it here in the back end. One of the cool things that this might just kind of spark some ideas for you guys is, like with the loop itself, have you guys ever had clients who they want their content displayed a little bit differently in a loop than the theme itself decides, so they might want like the categories ahead of the featured image or stuff like that. Basically with this theme, you can decide how you want everything to be. So if I decide I want the title to be first, and I want it to be wrapped in an H2 tag, and then I want my featured image to come next, and then I want categories to be wrapped in a P tag. You can create all this and then rearrange it all very easily however you want to. And then the loop just calls that's one of the examples of the flexible content fields. And so it doesn't matter what order I put these in, or it doesn't matter what order I code it in. However I drag it, if I put categories first, then it's going to show the categories first. And so I can do this for a single post itself or for the loop. to display things a little differently for people. And so there's a lot of customizability with that. And then again, it's definitely not the only way of doing this, but it's just how I decided to do it. Yeah?
Is advanced custom fields, are they thinking about moving that to the customizer, or is it staying within something like this?
I was reading up on it this week, and I think they're offering some features that are going to be within the customizer. This isn't really native to ACF, like an options page itself. Like you have to create the options page in your theme, and then assign. Like I can show you in the custom fields for this. So my options here, it's a ton of them. It's going to take a while. All right, so all those options I've just assigned to the options page here instead of to a specific page template or something. But I think they are coming out with some stuff soon that's going to be more focused on the customizer, so that you can use that, because I'm sure that's what a lot of people are familiar with using.
Yeah, but my brain, I skipped a step, and I was trying to figure out. Anyway, we're good. That makes perfect sense.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to walk y'all through 4 quick examples of how I use ACF and how that hopefully will help you guys see. So one of them is actually a site I just launched for my brother. One of the cool things we did for him was he wanted to mimic ESPN's layout for their website, to where ESPN has basically just a loop down the middle of their website of all their recent posts. But some of them are set up to be kind of a standard post with a big image and then your title and a little description about it. Some of them they aren't featuring as much, and so the image is a little smaller and off to the side, and the content's a little smaller. And then some of them are video posts, where you can just click and watch the video right there. And so he wanted the main loop of his website to be like that, and so we created 3 different page types for him, to where he could do a standard one with a large image, a smaller image to the side, and then a video post. So I'm going to show y'all how that looks in the back end of WordPress. So scrolling through this, we can see here's an example of just a normal standard post. There's a large image here with a title, an excerpt. Here's one that's a video post, where I can just click here and watch his video. And it just plays from his YouTube account right there. Let's jump back over to his other page, and we'll see one of the 3rd options here. Here's the 3rd option. So if it's not as important of an article, you can just have a smaller thumbnail to the side and then show your content to the right. So in order to do this with advanced custom fields, it's very simple. What I did is I just did a select field. So I said we want them to select the post loop type, and I put in 3 choices: standard, image left, and video. And I made the default be standard. And so if he chooses video, then I also have a YouTube ID field. And this is another cool feature. You can enable conditional logic on every single field in ACF. So with this one, I only wanted it to show if he chooses video. And then another interesting part about this is, so I've assigned it to anything that's a post, any post type that's a post, and then the position, I put this right after the title. Instead of displaying it after the content editor, it should be pretty high up for him to decide early on what he wants to do with that. And so when he goes over and creates a post, he then can decide, okay, I want this to be a standard post, or I want it to be image left, or video. And when he goes to video, he can drop in his YouTube ID there, and it drops in that video exactly where it was, and it's styled out that way.
Can we go back a couple of steps?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, sorry, I started going through some of this really
like
fast. So.
Way back.
Okay.
So so the smaller image, where did you create the parameters for that so that it's a choice?
So that's set up.
Like, where did you decide it was going to be that size?
So it's all pulling the featured image, but it's just saying how do you want to display the featured image on the site.
So the dimensions are the same, they're just scaled down.
Right, because when you click on the post, when you go to a post itself, we still need it to be a large featured image.
Right.
It's still going to display the way the other ones do.
So where did
But
you
here.
define that so
Yeah.
that,
Like in the PHP? Is that what you're
okay,
asking?
so that goes back to the PHP.
Yeah, so I'll jump into that here now.
Okay,
So
got it.
if I pull this up, this is his custom loop that I built.
Okay.
So it's
That's what I thought.
basically here.
Yeah.
If the post loop type is standard, then I've defined here, this is what I want each article to look like. And so it's got the thumbnail, it's got
And that's what's already
this
there
div,
anyway.
yeah. And then, well, I built this for
Oh,
it
oh,
basically. And then I said, you know, if it's image left, then you can see I've set up
Yeah.
4 columns for the image and then 8 columns for the content. And that's where you're seeing that right there. So that's
Yeah.
4 columns wide, that's 8 columns wide. So this is a little bit more of a complicated example because then you have the video one and there's all kinds of fun stuff of how to display the video. But that just gives you an example of basically how to simply add some choices to a post field, for example.
So do you just start off with a starter theme and then you add this and kind of make it look the way you want?
So that's where I use that same theme. All of these are running on the same basic. Its own single.php. It's got its own styles that I've built in.
And you do all this on the child theme, the ACF. You don't build that
Exactly.
into the parent theme, but into the child theme.
So the whole like styling from the options panel that we looked at a minute ago, that's all built into the parent theme.
Okay.
And so, you know, in my header, I've decided, you know, whatever the value is for header padding, that's going to be in the header of that theme. But then on the child theme itself, I'll rewrite like the single.php or the loop.php if they want to display those differently.
Okay, so basically the shell is in the parent and the...
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah. That's probably another talk
Okay.
we could have another time, is child themes and how all that works and kind of how you override all that. So, yes ma'am.
So I just want to understand, so when you use this plugin, do you also have to go into PHP? You can't just not go there?
Exactly. Yeah, you have to write. You have to
She
write.
would
a
have
little
left
bit
an
of
hour
PHP.
ago had she done that.
No, I'm one of these people who's a little terrified of touching the PHP. That's why I'm asking you about it.
There's if you use it without changing the PHP at all, you can add things to your site, but it's never going to display on the front end of the site. And so that's where
PHP.
I'll show you their resources here in a minute. It really is simple. Some of my examples look a little complicated because I've added a lot of styling, but it's very simple dropping in their code and using just their little if-then statements. If you have this variable, then display it. Sir.
So the sample page that you've been building for us, the earlier one, it had basic content. So how long did it take you to build that page out?
20 minutes.
So could you teach us that in an hour and a half of just building out a simple start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought about kind of walking through all that, but sometimes
Today's an intro, so
yeah, exactly. But it's definitely something, and I'll show you guys at the end here how you can kind of play around with ACF a little bit, creating. You won't be able to edit PHP, but you'll be able to create your own fields and assign them to posts or pages on your own website to kind of just get a feel for how it works. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm trying to take all this in and I'm wondering if I'm missing something. I build a lot of custom post types. I have a standard custom post type, testimonials, bios, FAQs, whatever, that I put it on my site. And it sounds to me like you're telling me I can do away with all that and just do it all in ACF.
You could.
Okay.
I use custom post types occasionally too, though. I'll show you. I think it's one of the next examples. We'll get into how you can assign a custom post type, and then create variables specifically for that. So, like I have a client who had an events page, and so their events posts look completely different than their blog posts, and just assigning variables for that.
I don't do events anymore. That's too.
Nobody updates their site.
But I build them for simple things. Would it be easier? You obviously done both. Would it be easier to do it in ACF or to just do it in the custom post type?
I prefer to use ACF whenever I can because it's my favorite tool. Like that. I don't.
Is it easier to do it there though than it is? I mean, if you already have an understanding of custom post types and you've already got the framework built.
So what are you doing then within custom post types to
bios, FAQs,
So then you're going into the functions.php file and saying if it's this custom post type, then put these variables on the admin page?
No, I'm building a custom post type as a plugin.
Okay, so if you want someone on their bios page, if you want them to add a headshot and a title and their name and bio.
I have custom fields, and then I just do the styling in my template.
Yeah, that sounds like that's what I'm doing.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
I'd be happy to look at it afterwards.
Well,
We can see what.
maybe I need to get ACF and try it.
We'll look and see. I'm curious what.
I think custom post types plugins actually write out
They're so simple.
effectively write out the PHP.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't played around with that a ton, but I think that's.
So display PHP, the PHP that's processed in the loop
Okay.
is written out by the custom post type editor.
Okay, gotcha.
Whereas the way ACF apparently works is it gives you the back end interface, but in order to have it show up in the post, you have to have it show up in the loop. You got to insert the PHP in the loop.
Right, and you get a lot more customizability by doing it this way because I can then style those out however I want to. But I need to play around with the custom post types plugin a little bit more because I'm sure there's a lot of it that you could do without needing to do some of the PHP. So
there's no opportunity for error when you code PHP directly, right?
There you go. I run into lots of
Look, here's an extra angle bracket.
So the next one here, this is actually the one I was just talking about. So they wanted an events page set up where they could basically select the date and it would expire the post after that date. They would show the time, they would show the location, and then a link to their RSVP page. And so here's the page that we built out for them. So there's all these optional things. Some of them have a location and all that. Some of them don't. But then they each have their own custom link to RSVP. And so this is just real briefly, I'll run through these and kind of try to wrap this up so that we can get some questions. But this is basically what the custom fields are that I've built. So there's all these fields where they can put in the time, the date, and it makes them select, obviously for the date picker, they have to put a date, then they can't put an email address in for the date. So you kind of force them to do that. And then when they go create an event, they just give it the title that they want, the date, the time, the location, the address. There's an option for them to drop some more information in if they want, and then they can put the link to RSVP there. And they can change what the button text says if they want to. And so you can style this out for them to do tons of different things.
So I think when you create that field group called events, does it automatically put the event link over on so you can create new ones over on the left side of the back end? You add that event, so you click on that to create another event, or do you have to tell it, put an events tab on my back end?
No, so that would be if you've already, this is basically if you've already created a custom post type for events, then how ACF basically says, how do we treat that? So your ACF won't create a custom post type in the same way that it won't create an options panel for you. It'll tell you how, it'll let you change the functionality of those things when they're created. So yeah. Another quick one here that I'll run through. So for this website, the blog post specifically, this client wanted the ability to switch between lots of different imagery and content, kind of go back and forth in her blog posts. She wanted to also have the ability to kind of drop a couple of images side by side and give them a caption. And so there were a little bit of some challenges of what they wanted. And here's what we came to. She has her featured image section, she's got her content editor, and then she's got all these images that she can drop in to where some of them will have a caption, some of them don't. And then on other posts, she might drop in a whole other content piece between two images. And so what that looks like is on her post panel, or on her post type for posts, I've created something called post extras, which is a flexible content field, and then she can create another text area if she wants to, or she can set up images and give them a caption. And so for that specific post, this is just a quick example of how she did it. she dropped in all her content, and then she went in and said, all right, here's one big image, and here's a caption for it. Here's 2 images I want to show side by side that we can see here, and then there's no caption on those ones. You know, here's 2 images side by side that I have a caption for, and we can see those show up here. And then if she wanted to, she could drop in a whole nother text section after that, and she has a whole WYSIWYG to drop in more content about her website if she wants to, or about that blog post. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with the flexible content field. I'm going to skip this one just in the sake of getting through the rest of this, because it's a little more technical what that site did. But just a couple extra things on ACF real quick. So they have a really, really great resource. I'll show y'all. That might take some of the fear out of the PHP side of things. So if you look up ACF Repeater on their website, they have a demo for each one that shows you what it does, and then it gives you basically the PHP code that you need. So you can just copy this code right here and drop it into your website. And so it has, you know, notations that tell you, all right, so check to see if the repeater has rows of data. So you would just replace your repeater field name with, you know, employees. That's the one we created earlier. So I just dropped in this code and then said, change it to employees. So if the row employees is there, then we're going to loop through them. So we would say, you know, if it has rows for employees, then we're going to put our title or our headshot. And you just put your own variables in there, and then you can style those out. So you could wrap the title in an H1 tag for each one. You could wrap the image in a class, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of great resources out there on their website for giving you the PHP examples that you need to walk through how that works. We talked also about the conditional logic on fields. So that is available for any individual field on ACF. So you can change any of the fields to say only show this if they make this other selection. And so that's another way that you can help keep your site from clients breaking it.
Is this mostly the pro version that you're showing us, or?
No, most of this stuff is available on the free one. Like the repeater field is a pro one, but most of this is available on just their free plugin. They have a relationship field. This is a pro feature that's really cool that you can select to pull content from other fields. So, for example, like I have a client who on their homepage they want a slider that shows a few of their recent stories, and they want to be able to pick which ones. They don't want it to be the latest 4. They don't want it to be the most popular 4. They just want to be able to pick which 4. And so instead of them going in and building out that slider or doing that, it lets them just go in and select the 4 posts that they want to, or they can add 5 if they want to. And then I can build out the code then to go loop through those individual posts and pull the featured image in and pull the title and all that information in. Based on which post they select out of that. And then we've talked a lot already just about how you can hide WordPress functionality as you need to from certain clients. So jumping into kind of what's a little different with the Pro, you get the repeater field, the flexible content, the gallery that we looked at, and then the ability to add fields to your options page. Those are all things that are set up there. It's pretty cheap actually for everything this does. $25 for a single site and $100 for unlimited. So like I have unlimited sites that I can install this on, and I've paid one time for it, and I've got lifetime updates on it. And I use it on every single site. So you basically just set up your code or your license key for each one, and then they can update the site as they need to. And so basically, I wanted to give y'all a quick chance if you wanted to play around with it. You won't be able to edit the PHP, but if you want to go to rampventures.co, you can go in and register for your own site on this multi-site, and then just the steps are on the site as well. You can kind of follow the steps there to sign up for your own, and then you can play around with going into custom fields and adding custom fields to different post types. And so you could say, all right, for a post, I want to hide the content editor and make them put in 3 images or something like that. And you can just kind of play around and see what the functionality is with that. So feel free to jump in there if you want to. just kind of want to open it up, see what questions people have and what ideas or problems they've had with ACF, or see what everybody thinks. So feel free to give it a try. And anybody have any questions? Yeah, man.
Have you compared pods to advanced custom fields?
I've not. Do you use that pretty often?
Yeah.
How's it work differently?
What did you call it?
Pods. I had a few issues with advanced custom fields, just how they label certain things.
Yeah.
And I like pods because you can build the custom post types. I mean, I normally don't use that. We don't normally use that. We normally hard code, actually write the plugin. But in certain cases, it just makes sense. If I just need a meta box to show up, somewhere, having a GUI to do it is pretty easy.
Yeah.
But you can build the custom posts using that, and then you can extend it. And it has things like the logic of relational. You can relate one custom post to another and stuff like that. I think it's possibly better, but I don't have a lot of experience with advanced custom fields. So it could be that I'm just biased with lack of knowledge.
I mean, that's the fun part about WordPress, I feel like, is everyone has their tools, and I mean, that's why I come to stuff like this, is because I know I have my tools that I love, but I love hearing about other tools that other people love, because it might be better. There might be functionality that's there that's not here.
We should have a battle. Give us challenges and we'll figure out. Yeah. So no, but I think it's pretty cool. So, and I think it's a lot newer too than advanced custom fields. So it could be lacking some features too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, okay.
I'll have to check that out. Thanks for sharing that. Other questions?
Oh.
Go for it.
I have another question.
You can't ask two in a row.
Well, no one else had their hand up, so I don't feel bad. With pods, you can export all of your, like if you build custom posts and build meta boxes, you can export it as code and take that and put that into your theme, so it's much more hard coded. Can you do that with advanced custom fields?
You're saying export
all the functionality. So like if you create meta boxes, with advanced custom fields, you disable it, the meta boxes disappear. With pods, you can export all of the actual code and save that, put it in functions.php on a theme or something, and that will show up. Can you do that?
I haven't played around with that. I think there might be some of that functionality there. I mean, I know you can export your fields and all that, but it kind of depends on where the field data is being stored. So I'm curious where pod stores their data.
No, it's in the same thing, but I'm thinking it doesn't necessarily store. We might be talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well,
I'll be curious. Yeah, I'm curious what
I'll email you.
Cool. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm just kidding. I don't